I want to tell you about a moment that I have never forgotten. I was at work, something happened. Nothing dramatic on the surface, honestly. No shouting, no crisis. Just a moment in a professional setting that, in hindsight, probably looked quite ordinary to everyone else in the room. But I became emotional in a way that completely blindsided me. And I do not mean a little tearful or a little flustered. No, I mean something rose up in me that I could not contain, I could not explain, and absolutely could not stop. And you see, the feeling underneath it was not frustration or stress or even sadness. It was humiliation, deep, searing. I want to disappear from this room and never come back kind of humiliation. And I remember standing there thinking, what is happening to me? Like, why does this feel so catastrophic? Why does this feel like I am 12 years old and the world is ending? You see, that moment stayed with me for years, not because of what happened, but because of what I eventually came to understand about why I responded the way I did. And what I understood, you see, changed everything for me. So I need you to stay with me because if you have ever reacted to something in a way that surprised even you, felt emotions that seemed too big for the moment, or found yourself behaving in a way you barely recognized, this video is going to give you something genuinely useful. Welcome back. If you are new here, my name is Remy Seun-Aladejana, and this channel is for people who want to understand themselves more deeply, not in a self help, fix yourself kind of way, but in a real, honest, sometimes uncomfortable, always worthwhile kind of way. Last week, we talked about attachment styles, how the way we love and the way we fear love was shaped before we were old enough to have any say in it. Now, if you have not seen that yet, I will link it at the end because it connects beautifully to what we are exploring today. Because today we are talking about something that sits right at the heart of so much of our confusion about ourselves. Why do we sometimes react like a completely different person? Let me take you back to that moment at work. You see, on the outside, I probably looked like someone who was struggling to hold it together. And I was. But what nobody in that room could see was what was happening on the inside of me. Something in that moment, a tone, perhaps, a dynamic, the feeling of being seen in a particular way by someone who held authority had reached past the adult sitting in that room and found something much older. And you see, that older part of me did not care that I was a professional. It did not care about context or appropriateness or what anyone thought. She just felt what she felt. And what she felt was that old, terrible, wanting to vanish feeling that I recognized from somewhere so far back. I could not even name the memory clearly. I went home that evening and sat with it, and I kept asking myself the same question. Remy, why did you feel so enormously emotional? Why did I respond like that when the situation did not actually call for it? And the honest answer, the one I only found much later, was this. I did not respond to what happened that day. I responded to every time something like that happened before. Every time I had felt unseen or dismissed or made to feel small, going back to moments I barely remember consciously. The adult in that room that day was fine. She could have handled it, but she was not the one who showed up. I need you to stay with me. Here is something I want you to sit with for a moment. We talk about ourselves as though we are one consistent person moving through life, making decisions and responding to things from a single unified place. But what if that is not really how it works? What if underneath the version of you that goes to work and pays the bills and, holds conversations and makes plans, there are older versions of you still very much present, still reacting, still trying to protect you in the only ways they ever knew how to? Not metaphorically, not as a nice idea, but genuinely, psychologically, in the way your nervous system responds and your emotions arrive before your thinking brain has ever caught up. Because here is what I have come to understand through my training: we do not leave our past selves behind. We carry them with us in certain moments, under certain conditions. They take over completely, and we wonder afterwards why we behaved that way, why we said what we said, why we felt what we felt, why we could not just respond like a normal adult. It is simply because in that moment you were not fully an adult, you were also a child, and a child who learns something very specific about what moments like that one mean. I want to share a way of understanding this that I genuinely wish someone had shown me years ago. Now, there is a branch of psychotherapy called transactional analysis, and at the heart of it is this beautifully simple but profound idea that we each carry three distinct ways of experiencing and responding to the world. The first part was what was handed to you. There is a part of you that learned everything from the people who raised you, the messages they gave you, spoken and unspoken, about who you are, whether you are worthy, how the world works, and what is expected of you. Now, this part speaks in the language of rules and judgments and inherited belief, and it can be incredibly nurturing, but it can also be incredibly harsh. And here is the thing that stops most people in their tracks when they first hear about it: that voice, the one that tells you that you are not good enough, or that you should know better, or that you have to work harder to deserve love, that voice feels like yours. It sounds like yours, but it was never originally yours. It was handed to you before you were old enough to question whether you even wanted it. Let's talk about the second part: the grounded present. Then there is the part of you that lives entirely in the present moment, the part that can look at a situation clearly without the weight of the past distorting it, and respond to what is actually happening rather than what it reminds you of. Now, this is the part of you that is calm and grounded and genuinely able to choose. The third part, the part that never grew up, the part that, first felt love and fear and longing and loss, the part that made decisions about survival when you were small and the world felt overwhelming and enormous. This part does not think, it feels. It does not reason, it reacts. It carries every single emotional memory you have ever had filed away in your body, ready to be activated the moment something in the present reminds it of something in the past. Now, that is the part that showed up in my workplace that day. Not with bad intentions, not to sabotage me, but because she recognized something in that moment that felt dangerous. And she did the only thing she knew how to do: she tried to disappear. And here is what I want you to hear clearly. I think it is the most important thing I will say today. That reaction was not weakness. It was not embarrassing. It was not proof that something is wrong with you. It was a younger part of you doing her absolute best to keep you safe, using the tools she learned in a time when those tools were necessary. The problem is not that she shows up. The problem is that she sometimes shows up in situations where the original danger no longer exists, where you are no longer small and the world is no longer as unsafe as it once felt. But she does not know that yet because nobody has told her, and she will keep responding to the present as though it is the past until you learn to hear her, understand her, and gently let her know that things have changed. So, what does this actually look like in your everyday life? I want you to start paying attention to the moments when your reaction feels bigger than the situation calls for. When something small lands like something enormous, when you shut down completely or become emotional in a way that confuses you, when you find yourself shrinking or people pleasing or getting defensive in a way that feels automatic, like you had no choice in it. Those are the moments worth getting curious about, not critical about, curious. Because behind every disproportionate reaction is a younger part of you who learned something very specific about what moments like that one mean. And they are not wrong for having learned it, they are just trying to survive. The question that has helped me more than almost any other is simply this: how old do I feel like right now? Not how old are you? How old do you feel? Because there is often a significant gap between those two numbers. And in that gap is a tremendous amount of information about which part of you has just taken over the steering wheel. You do not have to fix it in the moment. You do not have to perform calm. You do not feel at the moment. You just have to notice. And noticing, honestly, without judgment, is where everything begins to shift. I often think about that day at work sometimes. I used to think about it with shame, that particular kind of low level mortification that visits you in quiet moments and reminds you of every time you were not who you wanted to be. But I think about it differently now. As you can see, I'm smiling with something much closer to tenderness because I understand that the part of me that wanted to disappear that day had been working very hard for a long time, adapting and managing and making herself small so that things would be okay. And in that moment, she was just exhausted. She needed someone to finally see her and say, I know, I see you. You do not have to keep doing that. You are safe now. That is the work. Not becoming someone who never feels things too deeply or reacts in a way they cannot explain, but becoming someone who can meet those moments with understanding rather than shame, who can hear the younger parts of themselves and respond with the compassion they needed the first time around, but perhaps never received. If any part of this resonated with you today, I would genuinely love to know. Tell me in the comments, which part of yourself did you recognize in this? I read every single comment. Next week, we are going even deeper. We are talking about the story you decided about yourself before you were 5 years old, the one that has been quietly running your life ever since without you even knowing it was there. It is called your life script. And once you say it, you cannot unsay it. Subscribe if you are not already, because this is a journey and I think you are going to want to stay for all of it. Until next week, be really gentle with yourself. Bye bye.